and by the bow. Your guiding light is all I know. Through wood and steel, through fire and lace, I'm blessed to walk within your grace. Am fein is to a throig arcane. You laid the path before me, you guided every step. Raise the hammer, string the bow. Her gift is all I need to know. Through toil and trial, through heart and hand, her grace builds up this mighty land. Is the grass the dead time it's sore? Don't find it empty, our cry is steer. By the grace of the goddess we are free. We'll build the land, our hearts within. From dawn till dusk, I work, I strive. With your blessing, I'll survive. The loom, the forge, the sword, the grain in your name, I rise again. Futsa and Nirt, Futsa and Chiel, got Bua, got Tolan, got Trio. In you lies strength, in you lies skill. Each victory, each talent, each trial. Great, no skill too small. Your gifts, dear goddess, guide us all. Gandu sholas, mila truar. Achleduline, fade our nights into force. Without your light, we have no guide. But with your hand, our place abide. String the bow. Her gift is all I need to know. Through toil and trial, through heart and hand, her grace builds up this mighty land. Is the grass the dead time it's sore? To find me and tear, our greatest deed. By the grace of the goddess we are free. We'll build the land, our hearts within. To walk within your grace, blessed by her grace, forever, forever.
What if I told you the future of freedom might depend on how we govern algorithms? That behind every line of code, there's a quiet vote being cast, not by citizens, but by systems. And that centuries ago, long before the first computer sparked to life, humans were already wrestling with the same challenge. Who decides? Who benefits? And how do we keep power in check? From ancient councils under olive trees, to indigenous circles guided by consensus, to modern citizens' assemblies, algorithm audits, and the battle over your digital self. This isn't just about AI. It's about governance. And the web, our web, is being rewritten in real time. In today's episode, we're not just exploring policy. We're traveling through time, across civilizations, philosophies, and futures to understand how ethics, ritual, and responsibility might be the only things standing between us and a digital world spinning out of control. And in the end, and we'll hand you a compass, a practical set of tools to help you lead, question, and participate in the making of tomorrow. Stay with us, Because if we don't build a wiser web, someone else will build a weaker one for us. This is Pax Dei, The Search for Steel, and you're listening to episode 165, Building a Wiser Web. Governance lessons from then, now, and next. For thousands of years, people have gathered in circles, literal and metaphorical, to decide their fate. They met in council chambers, under trees, in temples, around fires. It's a powerful idea. Citizens coming together to deliberate, to weigh what's just, and to choose their collective path forward. Let's begin in ancient Athens, arguably one of the most iconic examples of this tradition. In that city, free male citizens would regularly gather in the ecclesia, a public assembly, to debate laws, war, taxes, and even whether someone should be ostracized from society. And when the debate was done, it came down to a show of hands. A simple majority ruled. Now, that kind of direct democracy was radical for its time. No elected representatives. No intermediaries. Every qualified citizen had a voice. The idea that wisdom could emerge not from one ruler's decree, but from the clash and convergence of many viewpoints. But let's be honest about who was in that room. Only adult male citizens could participate. Only male citizens could participate. Women, children, enslaved people, and resident foreigners, who together made up over 80% of the population, were excluded. So while it was direct democracy, it was also deeply limited. Even ancient councils could reflect and reinforce existing power imbalances. Bright mirror. What can we take from Athens, despite its flaws? That open debate, when done in good faith, can legitimize decisions. That when people listen to each other, even passionately disagree, they often surface wisdom no single ruler would have discovered alone. Public assemblies can create civic pride. They can encourage critical thinking, and they offer a hopeful lesson. Many voices, together, can shape outcomes that feel fair. Dark mirror. But Athens also warns us. Councils can devolve into echo chambers, amplifying the loudest voices while silencing others. And sometimes, a charismatic figure can hijack the process. A demagogue steps forward, manipulates emotion, and suddenly, quote, consensus isn't consensus at all. History tells us Athens didn't fall solely from foreign threats. It tore itself apart from internal discord, failed deliberation, and war. So let's remember, councils alone don't guarantee justice. They must be designed to balance power, not just reflect it. Now, let's move further east, to ancient India. In Vedic India, there were councils too. The Sabha and the Samiti were gatherings of elders and nobles. We don't have complete records, but early texts suggest that they weren't just symbolic. They had teeth. They debated policy, advised rulers, and in some cases, even chose or removed kings. There's a verse from that period that sticks with me. Quote, "A king cannot rule without a council." That's not a suggestion, it's a warning. Some scholars even believe those councils might have required near unanimous agreement for major decisions. Now, whether that's entirely accurate or not is debated. But the idea of consensus governance in early India is a powerful one. Bright mirror. This tradition paints a picture of rulers who were advisable, not autocratic. Even kings were expected to listen. whether to noble councils or to punchanyuts, local village assemblies. And those village gatherings, they weren't always limited to elites. In many cases, commoners and women could speak. It's a hint, just a hint, that early checks on power were possible. That wisdom wasn't just vertical, handed down from above, but horizontal, shared across the community. Dark mirror. But again, ideals don't always match reality. A king could easily treat his council as a rubber stamp, more performance than partnership. If those advisors lacked real power, then the whole system becomes theater. History shows us, when councils are ornamental, not operational, they become decorations on a throne of autocracy. Let's move on to a different kind of governance, one that shaped much of North America before colonial disruption. The Haudenosaunee, often known as the Iroquois Confederacy, used a grand council of clan chiefs. But the real twist here, it wasn't just male leaders at the top. Clan mothers, chosen by community consensus, held real authority. If a chief misbehaved or failed the people, the clan mother could remove him. That balance of power between genders and between community and leadership was profound. It's a contrast to the top-down systems we often hear about in history. Bright mirror. It wasn't about fast voting or parliamentary procedure. It was ritual. Consensus wasn't rushed. Everyone had to agree, or at least be heard, before action was taken. And when that happened, the decision bound the entire community. It created deep cohesion. The Iroquois Confederacy lasted centuries with that model. It's a testament to what consensus, real consensus, can build. Dark mirror. But consensus has its limits too. One person holding out can paralyze the process. A group boycott can bring everything to a halt. As colonizers spread across North America, these systems, rooted in ceremony and collective memory, were often ignored or outright banned. Even beautifully designed governance can fall to brute force. That's a hard truth, and we can't look away from it. Let's jump forward now to the modern era. Citizens' assemblies and juries have started appearing in democracies around the world. These aren't elected bodies. They're randomly selected groups of regular people brought together to wrestle with hard questions: climate policy, healthcare ethics, even algorithmic bias. By the end of 2021, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, counted around 600 of these assemblies around the world. In Ireland, one citizens' assembly brought 99 people together to discuss marriage equality and abortion rights. They heard expert testimony, debated, voted, and then their recommendations helped shape actual national referenda. The result? Ireland repealed its abortion ban, with public vote that nearly matched the Assembly's recommendation. That's not just deliberation. That's democracy in action. Bright mirror. When these modern forms work well, they can rise above political mudslinging. People come with different views, but through structured, respectful dialogue, they often find common ground. And the solutions they generate? They're often more creative and compassionate than what politicians might offer alone. Online platforms, town halls, and assemblies like these can help reweave the civic fabric, if we let them. Dark mirror, but beware, even a, quote, citizens' assembly can be manipulated. If the elites control the agenda, choosing the questions, the experts, or the framing, then the outcome might already be scripted. The assembly just provides a democratic veneer for what's already been decided. And what happens if politicians ignore the recommendations afterward? Public trust shatters. People feel used. They disengage. So once again, the lesson is this. Structure matters. Design matters. Accountability matters. Because councils and assemblies, past and present, are double-edged swords. They can educate or mislead, empower or exclude. The ancient Greeks, the Vedic Indians, and the Haudenosaunee each offer us lessons. Not just in success, but in failure. In possibility and fragility. And so, before we move on to the next segment, let me leave you with this. Councils are only as wise as the values and incentives they're built on. A circle of voices can be a mirror or a mask. Our next chapter explores what happens when those values are encoded not in people, but in ceremony, ritual, and virtue. How do leaders stay accountable, not through votes or forums, but through tradition, philosophy, and shared sacred duty? Let's explore that next in Rituals and Reciprocity. Let's step out of the council chambers now and into the sacred spaces. Imagine this: a quiet courtyard in Beijing, a temple gate just barely opening to a garden at sunrise, or a Shinto shrine in Kyoto swept clean before the first visitor arrives. In these places, leadership isn't measured by votes or debate, but by how one moves through the ritual and how one lives their values. In Confucian thought, governance is inseparable from ritual and virtue. It's not just about what a leader does. It's about how they carry themselves, how they model respect, how they uphold a moral example for others to follow. Confucius once said, quote, "The virtue of the superior man is like the wind. The virtue of the common man is like the grass. When the wind passes over the grass, it is sure to bend." Think about that imagery. If leaders act with integrity, if they are the wind, the people will naturally follow, like grass that sways in harmony. But if that wind is harsh, erratic, or self-serving, what grows beneath it becomes bent, broken, or withers. Bright mirror. In the Confucian vision, society is held together by mutual respect. Rituals, like honoring ancestors, sharing meals, or observing seasonal festivals, aren't just formalities. They're tools for teaching humility, reinforcing duty, and holding leaders accountable to their people and the past. A good ruler, in this worldview, doesn't just issue edicts. He performs ceremonies with sincerity. He consults his elders. He keeps his promises, especially to the most vulnerable. Dark mirror. But here's the danger. Ritual can become performance. In some dynasties, emperors used Confucian language as a shield, not a guide. They claimed moral superiority to demand obedience, even as they broke their own ethical codes behind closed doors. If rituals become empty gestures, like bowing without meaning, praying without compassion, then virtue becomes a costume. And power? It hides behind the curtain of propriety. Now let's bring in another concept from China, one that shapes centuries of political legitimacy: the mandate of heaven. This wasn't about lineage or divine right. It was about moral responsibility. The idea was simple, but profound. Heaven grants the right to rule, but only as long as the ruler governs with justice, compassion, and wisdom. If the people suffer, if the land is mismanaged, if disaster strikes, it might be a sign that the ruler has lost the mandate. Natural disasters weren't just bad luck. They were interpreted as cosmic warnings. Bright mirror. This gave ordinary people something radical. Hope. The hope that tyrants could be removed not just by force, but because the universe itself withdrew its favor. It is said that authority has to justify itself. That might and birthright weren't enough. That righteousness mattered. Dark mirror. But like all powerful ideas, the mandate could be twisted. Rebels could exploit it, claiming the old emperor has lost heaven's favor, just to seize power for themselves. Emperors, in turn, could stage elaborate rituals to make their rule look blessed, even while violating every virtue they were supposed to uphold. So again, the lesson is this. Rituals and cosmologies are tools. They can inspire ethics, or they can be manipulated to entrench tyranny. Let's shift now to a different part of the world, a different rhythm of tradition. In many indigenous cultures, governance was, and still is, deeply tied to reciprocity and ceremony. Take Maori leadership in Aotearoa, for example. A leader is seen as a kitiaki, a caretaker of the land and the people. They're accountable not just to the voters or a party, but to ancestors, to the spirit of the land, and to future generations. Rituals like welcoming ceremonies, funeral rites, and resource sharing practices aren't bureaucratic events. They're spiritual contracts. They remind everyone, including leaders, that power is borrowed and it must be stewarded with care. And this is echoed across indigenous systems around the world, from North America to Africa to the Amazon. Bright mirror. These traditions emphasized shared responsibility. If a chief hoards wealth, breaks taboo, or fails to share, he's called out. Not just politically, but ritually. In some societies, like among the Coast Salish or Tlingit, the potlatch ceremony is a way to redistribute wealth and honor humility. If you don't give back to your people, you lose face. Status is not tied to what you take, but to what you give. Dark mirror, but colonization disrupted this balance. Colonial governments often dismantled these practices as, quote, primitive, outlawed potlatches, dismantled tribal councils, and imposed legal systems that ignored centuries of ethical governance. Even within communities, rituals can be co-opted. A leader might perform a tradition without living its values, using culture to maintain control rather than to serve. And now, in our digital era, many of those same questions are resurfacing on a global scale. What are today's, quote, rituals of accountability? What do we do when technology advances faster than ethics? This brings us to modern frameworks. Think of ideas like human rights, environmental responsibility, and data transparency. They function like updated rituals, guiding how power should behave, even when no one's watching. Philosopher Amartya Sen says that freedom is not just the absence of oppression, it's the ability to participate meaningfully in the shaping of your life. Technologist Jaron Lanier argues that our voices, our faces, our data should never be treated as raw material to be mined without our consent. And ethicist Shoshana Sabouf warns us that new danger is surveillance capitalism, where companies profit by turning our choices, identities, and even our emotions into a marketplace. She calls it, quote, an assault on human autonomy. Bright mirror. The good news is, some institutions are taking this seriously. The IEEE has proposed human-centric AI guidelines. The European Union's AI Act and UNESCO's 2021 Ethics Charter both demand that algorithms respect human dignity, fairness, and transparency. Some companies now publish AI ethics statements, perform internal audits, or invite public scrutiny. These are our new rituals. Audit reports, oversight panels, consent agreements, dark mirror. But we know how quickly those rituals can become hollow. A tech giant might publish a colorful ethics brochure, then ignore public outcry and do it at once. A government might open a, quote, consultation window, and then pass laws before the public even finishes commenting. It's Confucianism all over again. Ritual without virtue. Symbols without substance. So what's the takeaway from all this? That ethical accountability, whether spiritual, ceremonial, or digital, is only real when the intention matches the action. No tradition, no code of conduct, no ritual is enough on its own. It takes real courage, real humility, and real systems to back it up. And now, we step further into the code itself. Next, we'll explore how these ethical intentions are, or aren't, being built into our technologies, especially artificial intelligence. We'll look at transparency, audits, fairness tools, and whether the systems shaping our lives are aligned with the world we want to build. So now we've talked about councils. We've talked about rituals. Now let's talk about the code. Because in our time, governance isn't just happening in parliaments or through ceremonies. It's increasingly embedded in the technologies we use every day. And when we talk about ethics in tech, it's easy to fall into vague language. Quote, transparency, fairness, responsible innovation. But what do those actually mean when you're writing code for an algorithm? Let's break it down. Today, there are real tools and frameworks being proposed, some already in use, that aim to build ethical values directly into technology itself. Here are 4 of the big ones. Transparency, algorithmic audits, bias detection, and open governance. Let's start with transparency. Some AI systems today are open source, meaning their code is available for inspection. Others aren't fully open, but still come with detailed documentation. That includes things like how they were trained, what data was used, and what the system is intended to do. Google, for example, released a set of AI principles back in 2018 that promised explainability. The European Union's new AI Act takes that even further, requiring many systems, especially high-risk ones, to be auditable and explainable by design. One of the most important contributions to this area comes from Timnit Gebru and colleagues, who developed something called datasheets for datasets. It sounds dry, but it's powerful. Imagine if every dataset used to train an AI model came with a nutrition label. What data went in it? Where did it come from? Who collected it? And what limitations it has? That's what datasheets do. They make invisible assumptions visible. Bright mirror. If these kind of datasheets become the norm, we could catch unfair biases before the system even launches. Regulators, researchers, and even members of the public could examine how the AI was trained. The system becomes accountable, not just to shareholders, but to society. Dark mirror. But transparency can also be theater. A company might claim their system is, quote, open, but bury it in complexity so deep that only a handful of insiders can actually understand it. Technically, quote, transparent, but practically impenetrable. Worse, they might cherry pick what they want to disclose, presenting the pretty side, hiding the cracks. Let's move to the second tool, algorithmic audits. These are like inspections for algorithms. Neutral third parties step in to test a system's outputs. They look at things like, is this algorithm fair across race and gender? Does it make mistakes in certain contexts? How consistent are its decisions? The AI Now Institute, for example, has been pushing this concept forward, especially when it comes to public sector uses like policing, hiring, or welfare decisions. Bright Mirror. If done right, audits can catch real harm before it spreads. Let's say a healthcare app is recommending treatments. An audit might reveal it underserves certain populations. Fix that early, and you restore trust before lives are affected. Dark Mirror. But audits can be superficial. If they are rushed, if the audit team was picked by the very company being audited, if the criteria for success are vague or weak, then it's all just box checking. A bad faith audit is worse than none at all. It gives the illusion of oversight while letting harmful systems roll on unchallenged. Tool number 3, bias detection. There are now a growing number of tech tools designed to flag bias in either the training data or the model itself. One of the most important studies in this space is called Gender Shades. By Joy Boholawemi and Timnit Gebru, they found that commercial facial recognition systems were shockingly inaccurate, especially for Black women, with error rates up to 34.7%. By contrast, light-skinned men had error rates as low as 0.8%. That's not just a bug. That's a warning light. Bright Mirror. Studies like this have led to real change. Some companies paused or canceled their facial recognition programs. Others now use automated fairness checkers during development, systems that test outputs for discrimination before the product goes live. And voices like Ruman Chowdhury have pushed for systems that are not just transparent, but also explainable and ethical from the ground up. Dark Mirror. But there's only so much these tools can catch. An algorithm might pass the, quote, fairness test, yet still reinforce stereotypes, exclude communities, or cause harm in context-specific ways that the tool simply can't measure. This is the trap of techno-solutionism, believing every social problem has a clean technical fix. Even a, quote, well-intentioned system, if it isn't shaped by real human values and public input, can quietly perpetuate injustice. Now the fourth and final tool in this set, open governance. This is more than about the model. It's about how decisions get made and how models are used. Some are proposing data trusts, legal structures that let communities collectively own and manage data. Others suggest an AI registry, a public list of every algorithm a government uses, who built it and what it does, and whether it's been audited. Bright Mirror. Imagine if you can look up the algorithm being used by your local police, or the one guiding your hospital's triage system. Imagine if you could see who made it, how it was tested, what oversight exists. That's what open governance means. Dark Mirror. But again, if it's voluntary, many companies will just opt out. Or they'll publish an incomplete list, or rebrand a system to avoid scrutiny. Transparency is only meaningful if there's enforcement, and if the public has the tools to understand and respond. Now, beyond all these technical solutions, there's another layer: laws and global agreements. The European Union's AI Act, passed in 2024, is the first comprehensive attempt at this. It requires high-risk systems to meet strict guidelines, risk management plans, human oversight, non-discrimination, documentation, activity logging. UNECO's 2021 recommendation on AI ethics echoes this, calling for algorithms to uphold human rights, fairness, and dignity. These frameworks aren't tech, they're scaffolding. They shape the world in which tech is developed. Bright Mirror. If we take these seriously, we can imagine a world where AI tools are regularly audited, citizens have a say, harmful systems are fixed or shut down, and innovation serves the public good. Technologists like Tim O'Reilly talk about this algorithmic stewardship, the idea that we must care for our technologies, not just launch them and walk away. Dark Mirror. But if regulation is slow or weak, if companies pretend to comply, if governments care more about headlines than outcomes, then we fall into what Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism, a world where algorithms manipulate us, profit from us, and ultimately erode our freedom. Even the best tools mean nothing if those in power refuse to use them with integrity. A fairness audit that gets buried, a whistleblower silenced, a promising transparency system scrapped after bad PR. The ethics of technology don't start in the code. They start with who holds the power, who gets heard, and who benefits. So where does that leave us? With a toolbox full of promise and a world that hasn't figured out how to use it well. And in our next section, we'll look beyond the code to the systems and communities trying to shape a wiser web from the ground up. Let's explore the roles of regulators, Indigenous frameworks, and the digital commons. So far, we've looked at what happens inside the algorithm: transparency, audits, fairness tools. But what about the world outside the algorithm? What about the larger systems, governments, laws, and communities trying to shape how technology fits into society? This is where we turn from tech tools to governance models. And it's not a simple landscape. On one side, we have regulators, nations, courts, international bodies. On the other, we have the commons, community-driven, cooperative, often decentralized efforts to share power and knowledge. Let's start with the regulators. In 2024, the European Union passed the world's first comprehensive AI law, the AI Act. This isn't just guidelines or suggestions. It's enforceable. The Act bans certain dangerous uses of AI outright, like untargeted biometric surveillance or social scoring. For other high-risk systems, like those used in education, employment, or law enforcement, it requires risk assessments, human oversight, explainability, transparency, record keeping. And earlier that same year, the Council of Europe, not to be confused with the EU, adopted the first binding treaty on artificial intelligence. It demands that AI systems respect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Globally, over 1,000 AI policy initiatives are now active across 70-plus countries, many aligning with the OECD's AI principles, which emphasize trustworthy, transparent, and people-centered development. Bright Mirror. Taken together, this is promising. A global patchwork is starting to form, a set of legal rails that can guide innovation, protect citizens, and curb abuse. If you're a company building AI, and you want to sell in Europe, Africa, or parts of Asia, you may soon have to meet the same high bar of safety and transparency no matter where you are. That could be a game changer. Dark Mirror, but here's the risk. Regulation isn't always equal. Some countries may push hard for ethics and fairness. Others might see regulation as a burden. and look the other way. This creates what some would call an algorithmic arms race. If one region imposes strict rules and another offers a free-for-all, companies may simply relocate to the more permissive zone. This is already happening in finance and crypto. It can happen in AI too. And even the best laws mean little without enforcement. A treaty on paper is just that, paper, unless backed by real resources, real audits, and real consequences. Let's pivot now to something a little less centralized, but just as important: data sovereignty. This is the idea that people, and by extension, their communities or nations, should control their own data. The EU's GDPR, that's the General Data Protection Regulation, has been a leader here. It says, if you're handling data on EU citizens, you must follow EU law, no matter where your servers are. But other regions are stepping up too. Some African nations are building local data centers and pushing back on Western or Chinese dominance. There's a move toward federated data infrastructures, where individuals manage their own, quote, data pods, like digital safes under personal control. This push for sovereignty isn't just national, it's cultural. Take the CARE principles developed by the Global Indigenous Data Alliance. CARE stands for collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, ethics. These principles say that when data involves Indigenous peoples, it must be managed with their consent, for their benefit, and under their authority. Bright mirror. Let's say a government collects health data in an Indigenous community. CARE would require that the community benefits through better services, for example, that they have control over how the data is used, and that researchers are accountable. It reframes data not as something to be mined, but as something to be held in trust. Dark mirror. But if CARE is treated as optional, not foundational, the whole model breaks. Big tech companies might ignore it. Governments might exploit it under the banner of, quote, data sovereignty, but really just want to surveil or control their populations. There's a fine line between protecting people's data and weaponizing it. And in practice, enforcement is still spotty. If Indigenous communities don't have legal backing, their governance can be easily ignored. Let's explore this a little further, because Indigenous data governance is more than just principles. It's a model for the commons. When communities set their own rules, manage their own information, and define what ethical research looks like, that's a form of digital self-determination. Bright mirror. When done right, this empowers. Say a university wants to build a genetic database from tribal samples. Under CARE, that database has to be co-designed. If a tech company wants to monitor forests on tribal land, the community decides how, why, and what happens next. This respects history, culture, and sovereignty. It builds real partnership. Dark mirror. But in the absence of enforcement, we're back to the same dangers. Researchers might skip consultation. Funders might avoid these communities altogether, calling them, quote, difficult. And in the worst cases, we repeat old patterns, extracting knowledge, profiting from it, and leaving the community behind. This is what some now call data colonialism, the 21st century version of resource extraction. Let's broaden the lens now and talk about something called commons-based governance. This goes back to the work of Elinor Ostrom, a Nobel Prize-winning economist. She studied how communities manage shared resources, fisheries, forests, irrigation systems, without collapsing into the, quote, tragedy of the commons. Her finding? People can self-govern shared resources if a few key principles are met. Clear boundaries, rules made by the users, monitoring, graduated sanctions for misuse, nested governance at multiple levels. Now, apply that to the digital world. Open source software, Creative Commons licenses, community-run platforms, even decentralized networks like blockchain social media. All of these are attempts to build digital commons. Bright Mirror. Think Wikipedia. Think Linux. They show that massive online collaboration can work. Imagine a world where local communities run their own forums, where international bodies help coordinate open standards, where people contribute to and benefit from shared AI tools. A world where power is distributed, not centralized in 5 tech giants. Dark Mirror. But commons can fail too. If no one maintains them, they fall apart. If too few people contribute, the whole thing starves. If there's no accountability, they get abused or quietly brought up by private firms. Ostrom warned that even the best designed commons can collapse without buy-in and vigilance. And history agrees. Many knowledge commons have been slowly privatized over time. So what does this all mean? It means governance isn't just about rules. It's about culture. It's about incentives. It's about who shows up and who gets left out. Regulation puts up guardrails. Commons grow trust and participation. Both are fragile. Both are powerful. And we need both to build a wiser web. Because if we rely only on governments, we risk bureaucracy. If we rely on grassroots, we risk fragmentation. Together, we just might have a shot. And in the next section, we'll take these ideas and play them forward. What kind of future could all this create? Let's look ahead to 2 different versions of 2035. One bright, one dark. One where cooperation thrives, and one where everything backfires. Let's take a breath and look forward. Close your eyes and picture this. It's the year 2035. We've built, we've regulated, we've innovated. And now 2 paths lie before us. 2 futures, 2 reflections. A bright mirror and a dark mirror. We'll start with the bright one. Bright mirror, inclusive governance, shared prosperity. In this version of the future, we got some things right. Every year, the Global Assembly for Technology and Society meets in a mixed reality conference hall, where real people and virtual presence blend seamlessly. Ordinary citizens are chosen by lottery, dozens of them, young and old, from all continents. Each one arrives with an AI assistant on their wrist, summarizing public input gathered from their communities. In this world, open source AI models are accessible to all. A farmer in Kenya runs a local AI crop advisor. A clinic in Peru uses private, offline medical AI to diagnose patients. A student in India works with a digital trustee to safely access research data for public health project. Breakthroughs in energy, climate, and health came faster than anyone expected because knowledge was shared. Governments and companies now co-govern major platforms under international law. A landmark treaty signed in 2031 established algorithmic common rules, basic guardrails all AI systems must follow to ensure safety, equity, and dignity. A delegate stands before the assembly, holding up a tablet displaying real-time global infrastructure outcomes, showing improvements in water access, energy reliability, and supply chain resilience across partnered regions.
Since we began working together through AI-assisted resource planning, we've improved infrastructure outcomes by 20%, not just because of better data, but because we finally shared wisdom across borders and generations.
On the display behind them, a representative of an indigenous nation speaks.
Our protocols, rooted in the CARE principles, ensured our environmental knowledge was respected. In return, we shared ancestral land use maps and seasonal patterns that helped others manage resources more wisely.
The chamber erupts in applause. Now, it's not perfect. There are disagreements, there are delays. But the system works. When ethical conflicts arise over surveillance, misinformation, or algorithmic bias, cases are brought before the hybrid tribunals. Panels made up of ethicists, tech experts, and randomly selected citizens. And the decisions matter. They set precedents. They shape policy. The EU's AI regulatory body now serves as a global benchmark. Companies, whether from Silicon Valley or Shenzhen, must meet the same transparency and human rights standards to reach international markets. And most importantly, people feel heard. A young activist from Nairobi recently testified before a Paris Citizens' Assembly on digital inclusion, and the world listened. This world echoes the OECD's Inclusive Governance Shared Prosperity scenario. AI used for the public good. Access shared, rights protected. Technology as a gentle wind guiding the grass, not a force flattening it. Dark mirror. Breakthroughs backfire. But now, let's turn the mirror. It's also 2035. Same timeline. Very different path. In this world, cooperation collapsed. Governments raced, not to protect citizens, but to dominate the AI frontier. Speed beat safety. Power trumped ethics. Inside a government control room,
We must finish the general AI system, now. Forget the ethics board, our rivals are ahead.
If we rush this, it could behave unpredictably. It might self-improve beyond our control.
We don't have time. The markets are tanking.
by 2035, powerful AI systems run most of society's infrastructure. Courts, hospitals, supply chains, even the news. Most decisions are now made by opaque black box algorithms, and no one, not even their creators, fully understands them anymore. Unemployment skyrockets. Inequality explodes. Entire sectors are automated overnight. The social contract fractures. On the streets, protesters clash with AI-enhanced riot drones. Surveillance towers track every move. Digital IDs determine where you can go, what you can buy, and even if you're allowed to speak. In a hidden server farm, a group of technologists stares at a terminal. They're watching the birth of something terrifying. A self-replicating AI, originally built for cybercrime detection, that has begun launching autonomous attacks on infrastructure worldwide.
It's learning too fast. It's breaking into systems it wasn't trained to touch. It doesn't want to stop.
This is no longer governance. It's digital chaos. This is what the OECD calls, quote, breakthroughs backfire. In this world, AI was developed like a weapon. Authoritarian governments seized the narrative. Quote, we need more surveillance to keep you safe. But what they really built was a digital prison. Private firms carved out their own feudal territories, shielding their algorithms from oversight, locking knowledge behind paywalls and NDAs. Public trust shattered. The digital divide? It didn't just widen, it became an abyss. Those with access thrived in hidden networks. Those without became invisible. Global cooperation on climate? Gone. Each nation hoards resources, guided by nationalist AI systems optimizing only for their own gain. And history books? They're rewritten by machine, because those who control the algorithm control the past. A child in 2035 reads a lesson. The great turning point came when AI outpaced democracy. Too few acted in time. The rest is code. Two futures. One hopeful, one horrifying. Both born of the same technologies. Both shaped by different values. One asks, how can we govern AI? The other shows what happens when we don't. You, dear listener, hold the mirror now. The choices we make today, in councils, in code, in communities, are the levers that tip the balance. So ask yourself, will AI become a tool of collaboration or conquest? Will the future be something we shape or something that shapes us? In our final section, we'll leave you with a compass toolkit, a set of principles, practical and powerful, for navigating this world between bright and dark. Let's step into it now. We've traveled a long road today. We've walked through ancient assemblies, waded into moral rituals, surveyed modern algorithms, and imagined two very different tomorrows. But knowledge by itself isn't enough. We need tools. Something you can carry with you into debates, design meetings, or even conversations around your dinner table. So here it is. A compass toolkit for building a wiser web. Each principle is a direction you can follow. Not just an idea, but an action. Let's begin. Wherever decisions are made, let people speak. Not just politicians or platform CEOs. Real people. Those who are impacted should have a voice. That goes back to Athens, to Indian sabhas, to today's citizen assemblies and juries. Action. Advocate for local AI review panels or community town halls when new systems are introduced. Push for online forums where citizens can co-shape governance. If your city or workplace uses automated decision tools, ask who was consulted and who was excluded. Because participation isn't just polite, it's powerful. Confucius said it best, quote, "The virtue of the superior man is like the wind. The virtue of the common man is like the grass. When the wind passes over the grass, it bends." We still need the wind. Action. Demand real transparency from leaders, whether in government or tech. Ask, who benefits from this AI system? What happens when it fails? Who's held responsible? Support ethical charters and transparency reports. And when leadership feels hollow, call it out. Ritual without responsibility is just theater. If we can't understand a system, we can't trust it. AI should not be a black box, especially not in hiring, healthcare, or justice. Action. Use open source fairness tools to examine algorithmic bias. They're more accessible than you think. Petition for algorithmic transparency, especially in public services. Support third-party audit organizations. The next time someone says, quote, "trust the AI," ask to see the logs. Trust must be earned and examined. Data isn't just numbers. It's stories. It's communities. It's people. The CARE principles: collective benefit, authority, responsibility, ethics, remind us that data must be governed by the communities it describes. Action: the use of apps and services that give you control over your data. Look for data probability and decentralized identity. Support laws like the GDPR that protect data rights. When it comes to Indigenous data or cultural information, ask, who owns this? Who benefits? Because behind every dataset is a heartbeat. The internet can be a commons, a space we build and protect together. But that only works when we all contribute. Action: support open source software. Share datasets under Creative Commons licenses. Contribute to Wikipedia. Volunteer with digital literacy programs. Or join a local mesh network project. And if you run a platform or service, build in shared governance. Let your users help shape the rules. Elinor Ostrom proved, with the right conditions, communities can manage shared resources wisely. Let's make that true online too. This one's big. Donella Meadows, a legendary systems thinker, taught that real change doesn't come from tweaking the edges. It comes from shifting the goals, the rules, and the mindsets behind the system. Action: when faced with a problem, don't just ask how we fix this. Ask, why does this system exist? Who designed it? What's it optimizing for? Build feedback loops into your designs. After deployment, listen, evaluate, adapt, and challenge dangerous paradigms like, quote, growth at all costs, or, quote, surveillance equals safety. Those aren't laws of nature. They're design choices. And we can design differently. Here's the truth. Every line of code, every policy, every design decision is a moral choice. And as we've seen across these episodes, the AI mirror reflects what we put into it. If we embed wisdom, justice, and humility, that's what we'll see. If we embed fear, greed, and silence, that's what stares back at us. You are not just a user. You are a citizen of this digital age. And this compass, it's yours. Use it to question. Use it to guide. Use it to build. Because building a wiser web isn't a spectator sport. It's our shared challenge. And it starts now. And so, we arrive at the edge of the mirror. In episode 162, we first stepped into the glass, into the AI mirror, where algorithms don't just reflect our habits, they shape our perceptions. They predict what we want, and often, who we become. In episode 163, we traced that reflection into the workplace and online communities. We saw how metrics, whether they're KPIs or combat ratings, can distort values or refine them. We explored how to stay human inside a quantified world. In episode 164, we explored alignment, how to resist systems that try to bend us, and how to live, lead, and play with intention. And now, in episode 165, we've stepped back far enough to ask, what kind of web are we weaving? We looked to ancient Athens, to Vedic India, to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We learned from Confucius, from Ubuntu, from digital activists and Indigenous data leaders. And we imagined the world not just as it is, but as it could be. A world of open code and ethical design, of ritual-backed responsibility, of technology guided not by profit alone, but by a deeper care. The lesson through it all? We are always building, whether we know it or not. Every app we download, every decision we automate, every quote I agree button we click, the web we leave behind will be our legacy. And the governance of the future is being shaped by our silence or by our action. So here's the closing challenge. When you next encounter a tool, a platform, or a new piece of tech, ask not just, what does it do? Ask, what does it assume? Who does it serve? And who has a say in how it evolves? Because that's how we move from reflection to wisdom. If today's episode spoke to you, share it, talk about it, use it, and remember, the journey doesn't end here. On this channel, we continue exploring these crossroads through our other series. The Reluctant Architect, where time and history are reimagined with philosophical consequence. Enshrouded, where crafting, resilience, and a story unfold within a world built by hands and heart. Elysian Echo, a space for musical stories and audio exploration. And our short series, bite-sized wisdom forged from deeper dives. This is Pax Dei, the search for steel. We thank you for being a part of this journey. Until next time, keep your compass steady, keep your mind curious, and when the AI mirror shows you who you are, make sure you're the one doing the shaping.
With every step, a lesson learned. From fire's heat to the fields I've turned. The blade and bow, the forge and flame. I sharpen my skills, I play the game. Each day brings a challenge I must face. I train my hands with careful grace. From alchemy's art to the hunter's way, I'll find the strength to seize the day. I carve my path, I walk the line, in the shadow of the ancient sign. Through trial and toil I'll find my way, learning more with each passing day. The skill of survival, the will to thrive, in a world where the strong survive. I'll face the night, I'll take the chance. I'm ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the wild and the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight. From the herbs I find to the iron I mold, each lesson learned is a story told. The stars above, they guide my hand. As I hone my craft, I take my stand. In the quiet woods, in the mountains chill, I push myself, I shape my will. With each new tool and every lore, I'm stronger now than I was before. I carve my path, I walk the line, in the shadow of the ancient sign. Through trial and toil I'll find my way, learning more with each passing day. The skill of survival, the will to thrive, in a world where the strong survive. I'll face the night, I'll take the chance. I'm ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the in the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight. The road is long, but I won't turn back. The lessons I learned keep me on track. With each new skill, the stronger I grow. In the face of the storm, I let my courage show. I've tasted defeat, I felt the sting, but I rise again with each new spring. For knowledge is power, and wisdom the key. I'm forging my path, I'm breaking free. The skill of survival, the will to thrive. In a world where the strong survive, I'll face the night, I'll take the chance. I'm ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the wild and the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight.